Learn English through story. The Golden Thread. There was once a tailor named Marcus, known throughout the city of Embris for his extraordinary skill with a needle and thread. His small shop, located at the heart of the bustling market square, was always filled with customers seeking his expertise in crafting garments that seemed almost magical in their fit and beauty. Marcus had a rare gift: he could transform the simplest of fabrics into masterpieces that brought out the best in whoever wore them. Despite his talent, Marcus lived a simple life. He was a humble man, content with his modest earnings, and he found joy in the act of creation rather than in wealth or recognition. However, there was one thing that Marcus valued above all else: a spool of golden thread that had been passed down through his family for generations. The thread was unlike any other. It shimmered in the light, appearing almost alive, and it was said to have the power to make wishes come true. Marcus had never used the thread, not even once. He kept it in a small, intricately carved wooden box on a high shelf in his workshop, where it remained untouched but always present. The thread represented to Marcus both a great responsibility and a connection to his ancestors, who had used it sparingly and wisely throughout the years. As the years went by, Marcus's reputation as a master tailor continued to grow. Nobles, merchants, and even royalty sought his services, and his shop became one of the most famous in the city. Yet, despite his success, Marcus remained the same humble man, dedicated to his craft and to serving his customers with honesty and care. One day, a wealthy merchant named Alistair came to Marcus's shop. Alistair was known throughout Embris for his vast fortune and his insatiable desire for the finest things in life. He wore only the most luxurious clothes, dined on the rarest delicacies, and surrounded himself with the most beautiful objects. But despite his wealth, Alistair was never satisfied. There was always something more he wanted, something just out of reach. Alistair had heard of Marcus's golden thread and its reputed power. He believed that with such a thread, he could finally achieve the one thing that had always eluded him: a perfection. He wanted Marcus to create a garment for him using the golden thread, a garment that would make him the most admired and envied man in all the land. When Alistair entered the shop, he was immediately struck by its simplicity. There were no extravagant displays, no lavish decorations, just rows of neatly arranged fabrics and tools of the trade. Marcus greeted him warmly, as he did all his customers, and asked how he could be of service. "I've heard of your golden thread," Alistair said without preamble, his voice filled with eagerness. "I want you to make me a suit using that thread. I'll pay you whatever you ask. Name your price." Marcus was taken aback by the request. He had never intended to use the golden thread for something as vain as satisfying someone's ego. "The golden thread is not for sale," he said firmly. "It has been in my family for generations, and it is meant for something much more meaningful than fashion." Alistair's face darkened with frustration. He was not accustomed to being denied what he wanted. "Surely, there must be something you want," he pressed. "Gold, jewels, land? I can give you more wealth than you could ever imagine. All I ask in return is that you use the thread to make me a suit." But Marcus shook his head. "The thread is priceless," he said. "It cannot be bought, not even with all the riches in the world." Alistair left the shop that day, but he did not give up. He was determined to have that suit, and so he began to visit Marcus regularly, each time offering more and more in exchange for the golden thread. He offered Marcus a mansion, a title, even a place at the royal court. But each time, Marcus refused, insisting that the thread was not for sale. Months passed, and Alistair's obsession with the golden thread grew. He could think of nothing else. His every waking moment was consumed with thoughts of the suit that would make him the most perfect man in the land. He began to neglect his business, his family, and his friends, all in his relentless pursuit of what he could not have. Finally, one day, Alistair arrived at Marcus's shop looking haggard and desperate. His once impeccable clothes were rumpled, his hair disheveled, and his eyes wild with desperation. "Please, Marcus," he begged, his voice breaking. "I need that suit. It's the only thing that can make me whole. I'll give you anything and just name your price." Marcus looked at Alistair, seeing not the powerful, wealthy merchant who had first walked into his shop, but a man consumed by his desires, lost in his quest for something that could never bring him true happiness. He knew then that no amount of reasoning or refusal would dissuade Alistair from his obsession. With a heavy heart, Marcus made a decision. He walked over to the high shelf where the wooden box lay and took it down. He opened the box and carefully removed the spool of golden thread, holding it out to Alistair. "Take it," he said quietly. "But understand, Thistle, once you use the thread, it will be gone forever. Its power can only be used once, and you must choose wisely what you wish for." Alistair's eyes lit up with greed as he took the spool from Marcus. He could hardly believe his luck if finally, he had what he wanted. Without another word, he turned and rushed out of the shop, clutching the golden thread to his chest as if it were the most precious thing in the world. Days later, Alistair returned to his grand mansion and immediately summoned the finest tailor in the land. He instructed the tailor to use the golden thread to create a suit that would make him the most perfect, admired, and envied man in the world. The tailor, though skilled, was nervous about working with such a rare and powerful material. But Alistair was insistent, and so the tailor set to work. For days, he toiled over the garment, carefully weaving the golden thread into the finest fabric, crafting a suit that was, indeed, unlike anything ever seen before. When the suit was finally finished, Alistair could barely contain his excitement. He put it on and stood before a mirror, marveling at his reflection. The suit was flawless, shimmering with the golden light of the thread, and it fit him perfectly, enhancing his every feature. He felt powerful, invincible, and above all, perfect. But as he continued to gaze at himself in the mirror, something strange began to happen. The longer he looked, the more dissatisfied he became. He noticed a slight wrinkle at the corner of his eye, a tiny imperfection in his posture, a flaw in his complexion that he had never seen before. The more he scrutinized himself, the more flaws he found, until he could no longer see the beauty of the suit at all, only the imperfections that it failed to hide. In his quest for perfection, Alistair had become blind to the reality that perfection was an illusion, something that could never be achieved, no matter how hard he tried. The golden thread, with all its power, had only served to amplify his obsession, not fulfill it. Consumed by his dissatisfaction, Alistair withdrew from society. He no longer cared for wealth or status, for he saw himself as nothing more than a collection of flaws, each one magnified by the very suit he had believed would make him perfect. He became a recluse, hiding away in his mansion, tormented by the unattainable ideal he had chased for so long. Meanwhile, Marcus continued his work in the shop, his heart heavy with the knowledge of what had happened to Alistair. He knew that the golden thread had been wasted, its power squandered on a futile pursuit. But he also knew that there was a lesson in what had transpired, a lesson about the dangers of obsession, the folly of chasing perfection, and the true value of contentment. One day, A young boy came into Marcus's shop, asking for help to mend his tattered clothes. The boy was poor, but his eyes were bright with gratitude as Marcus offered to help. As he worked, Marcus thought about the golden thread and what it had come to symbolize. He realized then that true value lay not in the thread itself, but in how it was used, in the intentions behind it. When the boy's clothes were mended, he thanked Marcus profusely and asked if he could do anything in return. Marcus simply smiled and shook his head. "Just remember," he said gently, "that the worth of something is not in how much it costs or how rare it is, but in the good it can do." And with that, the boy left, his clothes mended and his heart full of gratitude. Marcus watched him go, knowing that while the golden thread was gone, the lessons it had imparted would remain, a golden thread of wisdom woven into the fabric of life. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you enjoyed, then please like and share this video, and don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.